Hello and welcome to another Magic Duels gameplay. Today we're taking a look at an Abzan Midrange deck, which means we've got a lot of powerful rare and mythic rare cards to work with, so you'll see a lot of 1 and 2-offs in this deck. We've got some efficient removal spells and also some powerful Planeswalkers to top it off. So the deck is not particularly synergistic, but that's not really necessary when all the cards are so individually powerful. So let's take a look at the entire deck, starting out with Oath of Nissa, a nice enchantment to smooth out our draws, can find lands, creatures or planeswalkers, and can also help cast those planeswalkers, which sometimes can have steep mana requirements. We've got an efficient flyer in Selfless Spirit that can also protect some of our valuable creatures later in the game by giving them indestructible. We've got Deathcap Cultivator, which can provide some mana acceleration so we can get to our powerful cards faster and can also fix our mana somewhat. Sylvan Advocate, another efficient creature that gets pretty powerful in the late game once you hit land number 6. We also have some creature lands to go with him. Another efficient creature in Duskwatch Recruiter that can also provide some card advantage later in the game and transforms into the Howler to make our creatures cheaper. Then we get to some of our removal spells. 3 copies of Grasp of Darkness as our removal spell of choice, which can answer with Smuggler's Copters nicely, for example. Having a way to deal with Copter at instant speed is very valuable. We've got 1 copy of Declaration in Stone as a catch-all removal spell that can deal with any size of creature and can also clean up tokens nicely without having to give the opponents any clue tokens. 1 copy of Thalia, Heretic Cathar, a nice card against aggressive decks as she plays defense nicely and makes it difficult for the opponent also to play defense himself. And only 1 copy here since it is a legendary card and we've got a lot of other powerful cards we want to include in the deck. 1 copy of Nissa Vastwood Seer, which can find us a land, so a nice 2-for-1 that also later in the game transforms into Sage Animus to provide some more card advantage. And speaking of card advantage, we've got Tireless Tracker, probably one of the best green cards in the game. And happy to have both copies here, giving us a clue token whenever we play a land, combines nicely with Evolving Wilds. Then we've got 2 copies of Reclamation Sage in the deck, which is an answer to all of those vehicles that are running around. So if we're facing those decks today, we'll hopefully draw into our Reclamation Sages to deal with them. Another instant speed removal spell that can deal with Copters in Skywhaler's Shot, also just an efficient removal spell that's easy to cast in a 3-color deck and also gives us a Scry 1. We've got a lot of 1-off copies here of removal spells just to give us some extra versatility. We've got 1 Anguished Unmaking, which can deal with other card types besides creatures like planeswalkers and enchantments, but it does come at a cost of 3 life. Also 1 copy of Read the Bones, just to give us some more card advantage, but don't want to draw too many of these. Then a copy of Liliana the Last Hope, which can return some of our powerful creatures from the graveyard and can also control the board and work up towards an ultimate. We've got Gisela the Broken Blade without her counterpart, just a nice efficient 4-mana creature with Flying, First Strike and Lifelink. So very nice against opposing aggressive decks. And same with Kalitas, Traitor of Get, a nice life-linking creature that makes zombies whenever we kill one of the opponent's creatures. Then of course Gideon, one of the best cards in the game, and happy to be playing him in this deck. Got also Archangel Avacyn as another very powerful creature at 5 mana. That also synergizes nicely with our Selfless Spirit, as we can sacrifice it to make our Avacyn transform into the Purifier to deal damage to everything and everyone. We've got a Verdurous Gearhulk to put some counters on some of our creatures and kill the opponent very quickly. Some more Planeswalkers here, 1 copy of Ob Nixilis, which is removal and card advantage all rolled into 1. Nissa Vital Force, which can make a 5/5 elemental creature that's still a land, so also synergizes with Sylvan Advocates, for example, and can also return cards from our graveyard and make an emblem to draw some more cards. And then a Noxious Gearhulk, a 6-mana creature that stabilizes the board nicely when you play him, destroying a creature and gaining some life back. And same here with the Woodland Bellower, which can find many of our green creatures, including Reclamation Sage, if we're up against artifact-based decks. So that's why I like the Bellower a bit more than something like Green Warden of Murasa, which is more of a grindy card, and I like Bellower more as it's a better stabilizer against aggressive decks, putting 2 creatures into play right away and maybe even killing an artifact. And then finally Sorin, Grim Nemesis, another way to deal with opposing creatures and planeswalkers and gain some life back in the process, and can also draw some extra cards. And then the mana base. So as you may have noticed, we're not playing any sweepers in the deck, even though most mid-range decks will often play a sweeper or 2 in the deck to maybe catch up when they're behind or protect their planeswalkers. But since we're more focused on playing a lot of cheap creatures ourselves, playing sweepers would be kind of counterproductive, and sweepers also don't really line up nicely against vehicle decks. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which is a little awkward since we need double black for Grasp and green for the Recruiter, and we have 2 planes. But we do have Gideon and Avacyn, so I don't think we can really mulligan this. Now hopefully we draw a black or a green land soon here, so we can know what we need to fetch for with Evolving Wilds as we draw 6-drop. So I think, given that we drew the Bellower, also kind of makes me want to get a forest so we can play turn 2 Recruiter. And we also have more black mana in our deck that we can draw naturally. So I don't mind getting a forest here, so we can go turn 2 Recruiter and hopefully turn 3 some other creature into turn 4 Gideon. Opponent on black-white, so could be a controlling deck. Alright, second Recruiter's not bad. So if our opponent kills 1, we still have a second one, and we have a play for next turn. Don't have any creatures that really benefit from the Recruiter transforming at the moment, since we're pretty far from Avacyn or Bellower. So let's find out. Alright, so opponent just black-white. And there's a Grasp of Darkness. That's fine. We'll just play a second Recruiter here. Alright, Forest is not a terrible draw. Let's play the Recruiter. Could have perhaps played a Forest instead of the Plains to represent a Blossoming Defense. Alright, interesting. Our opponent with an Inventor's Fair, so they might have a heavy artifact theme in their deck as they play Smuggler's Copter. We do have a Grasp, but we don't have any black mana, so that could be awkward. And now a Scrap Heap Scrounger, so our opponent is quite the aggressive deck actually. We put them on a control deck after we saw black-white and Grasp, but... Alright, so Gideon doesn't line up great against Smuggler's Copter, unfortunately. Can't really attack with the Duskwatch Recruiter, since her opponent can crew the Copter and block with it. So we could play Gideon, make an emblem. We do have the Avacyn that can potentially block the Smuggler's Copter. So actually, I kind of like just saying go, and then when the Recruiter transforms, we get to play Avacyn for 4 mana here. And once we have a flying blocker out, we can protect our Gideon. So Recruiter transforms. We're not going to use the ability here to try and find more creatures. We're just gonna hold up Avacyn and hope their opponent attacks into it. And I guess that they don't have a removal spell for Avacyn. Foundry Inspector confirms the heavy artifact theme. Goes to Crudocopter, which might be in for a surprise here. Oh yeah, this is gonna be pretty brutal. Probably should have let my opponent loot first, so they have less information of what to discard and they don't see the Avacyn yet. But I didn't really want to miss the timing here, since we get to block both of the opponent's creatures and ours are indestructible. So that couldn't have gone any better for us. Another Copter, alright, that's fine. We've got a 4/4 Flying Vigilance creature. Now the Howler transforms because the opponent played 2 spells. We drew in Nissa, but unfortunately we only have 2 forests in the deck, so we can't get another forest with this Nissa. So I think just playing Gideon makes sense here, and since we do have a Vigilant creature in play, I think it's fine to just make a token, but I guess we can attack for 6 first. I don't think we need to keep the Recruiter on defense. And of course hope our opponent can't answer our Avacyn. Make a 2/2 token. And that's a pretty decent turn, all things considered. Still don't have any black mana for the Grasp, but we do have some spells we can play if we hit any land. Juggernaut from the opponent, alright, so that's a big artifact. Has to attack each turn if able. And let's see if the opponent has a removal spell for their last card here. They are gonna start gaining 1 life a turn with the Inventor's Fair, and they might also be able to search for an artifact, although they already went through 2 Smuggler's Copters, so yeah, looks like the opponent doesn't see a way to still win this game. And alright, there's a nice draw. So here we can go Nissa, turn a land into a creature. Let's see, could also return the Evolving Wilds from our graveyard to our hand, just to give us the extra land and the extra black source. So a lot of options for sure. Attacking with Avacyn is a freebie. Plus in Gideon and attacking is also kind of a freebie. Not so sure about attacking with the 5/5 from Nissa, since it will trade for the Juggernaut. So not that into it. So I think we'll start by plussing Gideon. And attacking with Gideon and Avacyn. Could attack with one of these guys to make Avacyn transform, but I don't think we need to take that risk. So their opponent is gonna Crudocopter. And they're gonna chump Gideon. So they're throwing away resources at this point. Can play Nissa. I guess we could still plus, but let's just get back an Evolving Wilds. And say go, and then next turn we can even play the Evolving Wilds and turn it into a creature. Opponent getting back the Scrap Heap Scrounger from the graveyard. So they do gain a life of Inventor's Fair. But we still have plenty of blockers, so they need an answer for Avacyn. Alright, that kind of works. But they also lose their creatures, so it's not the end of the world. Still have 2 Planeswalkers in play, so don't feel too bad about that. And here, sure, let's play the Oath of Nissa first, see what we can find. Selfless Spirit is not bad. Could have also potentially just played a Bellower by untapping a land with Nissa and floating mana, but I don't think that's gonna be necessary here. So let's plus Gideon, untap a land, turn it into a creature, play Selfless Spirit, and attack for 10, put the opponent at 1. And we have spirits to jump in front of the copter if we need to. And Evolving Wilds is gonna get a swamp end of turn here. Could have maybe fetched first with Evolving Wilds before playing Oath of Nissa, since now we shuffle back the cards that we put on the bottom. Opponent plays a familiar, gains 2 life, draws a card when it dies. Could crew the copter here, but if they attack, they're pretty dead on the way back. But the AI has no fear, and in fact they might not even attack here, since for some odd reason the artificial intelligence likes jumping into vehicles without actually driving them around. So sure, let's just sack the spirits here, get our swamp. Opponent still getting back the Scrap Heap Scrounger, but it can't block, so that's not gonna help them. And we have plenty of ways to close out the game here. Can even play the Bellower to get a Reclamation Sage to blow up one of these artifacts. And then we have Gideon and Nissa making a 5/5. So just since our opponent has already left, we can have some fun here. Yes, please. And let's get that annoying copter out of here. And hit our opponent for 10. Since we're doing the daily quest to deal as much damage to our opponents as possible. So I hope you don't mind. On to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which looks pretty decent here. We've got some early plays, we've got our mana fixed, so let's keep. Can go turn 1 Vent, turn 2 Forest into Spirits, turn 3 Evolving Wilds into a second Spirit, and then at some point we can play our Oath of Nissa, find more lands for the Gearhulk. So just hoping our opponent doesn't have a easy way to deal with our spirits here. They're on red-white, so they could have some burn spells for the spirits. But yeah, still think we play out the spirit here, start applying some pressure, and if the opponent wants to spend their mana killing our spirit, then we have more time to draw into our more powerful cards. So next turn we could go Oath of Nissa into Selfless Spirit. Or we can just play the Wilds and play the Spirits, and then if we naturally draw into a 4-drop we can play it the turn after by playing the Swamp. Although we don't currently have a 4-drop. Alright, another Wilds I think makes that decision a little easier. So let's attack for 2. Opponent might have removal here, but I guess we'll find out. Alright, they just take 2, and yeah, I think we get a, let's see, do need double green for the Gearhulk. Double black is sorted, double white could be a thing for Gideon and Avacyn and Gisela, but I think given that we have the Gearhulk in hand and we also have this Oath of Nissa, I'll go with the forest. It's a little awkward if we draw into our Nissa Vastwood Seer, which would find us a forest, but that's the cost of playing 3 colors. Alright, Rootbound Crag, Radiant Flames, actually not the end of the world since we can just sacrifice one of our 2 spirits to save the other one, so it's just a 1-for-1 removal spell here. And more lands is not really what we need, so by fetching a forest we did not allow ourselves to activate the Shambling Vent here, but I think we wanted to play the Oath of Nissa regardless. So I think we do that before playing Evolving Wilds in case we draw into a 3-drop we want to play here. A nice one would be something like a Liliana, instead more lands. So let's see, I guess we might as well get this one. Here we have the option of playing the land we just revealed with Oath of Nissa to give less information. Or we can sacrifice Evolving Wilds, although that will shuffle a land and a Grasp of Darkness back into our library, and we don't really want to draw those cards. Plus Evolving Wilds can combine with a Tireless Tracker, so I think we played either the Vista or a Swamp here. I think we'll go with Vista, and then attack for 2. And then next turn, hopefully we get to play the Gearhulk. Not sure what our opponent's on, could be a Planeswalker type deck, or just another mid-range deck like ours. They have a Tireless Tracker into a Plains, which grants them a clue token. So hopefully our Gearhulk is going to be big enough to deal with the tracker, although Ob Nixilis is a nice draw here. I think we just use Ob Nixilis to deal with the tracker and don't give our opponent any more card advantage. And then the question is, do we keep back our Spirit to protect the Ob Nixilis, because our opponent could activate the Needle Spires to then kill the Ob Nixilis. So I think we play Ob Nixilis and actually stay back with Spirit here. Although if our opponent does spend their entire turn activating Needle Spires, maybe it's not the end of the world, but given that we have so little action in our hand besides the Gearhulk, I think it's safer to just stay back with the Spirit. And if our opponent wants to activate, I'll rather trade a Spirit than an Ob Nixilis. So let's find out. And I don't think this is gonna come down to 2 damage here. If it's a mid-range mirror, it usually comes down to who draws the most cards. And keeping Ob Nixilis alive is a good way to go about doing that. Another Tireless Tracker, that's unfortunate. Plus a land. They can also sacrifice a clue here. They do it right away. Alright, so we do have a Gearhulk that can block the tracker. And Sylvan Advocate also does a pretty good job of doing that. So let's start by drawing a card. See what we draw into. Read the Bones, that's more cards, that's always a good thing. So let's see, what mana do we want to tap here? This looks good. And then we can play the Advocate and then set up a turn where we can attack for a whole bunch with the counters we get from the Verdurous Gearhulk. Alright, I don't mind Gisela, although she does die pretty easily to burn spells from the opponent. So maybe we don't take her. And instead find 2 lands. That's not ideal. Yeah, I think we play the Advocate and attack for 2 with the Spirit, since now we have the Spirit to protect our Sylvan Advocate. And then of course play out our Evolving Wilds here, I think, even though we give up a clue for Tireless Tracker by playing the Wilds. At least we get a tap land out of the way, and I think we need a swamp here more than anything else. Alright, so we're in a decent position if our opponent can't deal with our Advocate here. Another land for the tracker. Alright, opponent has Arling Cord, so they can pump up their tracker instead. And I think we're obliged here to block with Sylvan Advocate and sacrifice a Spirit. Alright, Duskwatch is not a bad draw, so here we have a few options. We could keep plussing Ob Nixilis, but I think I would rather just deal with the tracker. This also allows us to attack with the Sylvan Advocate and take down Arlen. So I think we just do that first. And now the question is, do we play the Duskwatch and activate it a bunch, or do we play the Gearhulk right away and turn up the pressure? Could also go Gearhulk plus Duskwatch here, but then we kind of get blown out by a planar outburst, which our opponent could easily have. I think we start by attacking. I guess this doesn't play around Blast Alliance from the opponent, but that card's going to be pretty good against his hand regardless, unless we spend an entire turn activating Shambling Vent. Alright, so no Blast Alliance, that's good. So now, let's see, if we play Duskwatch, we only get to activate it once. But I like playing Gearhulk more when we can get value out of the counters right away, so I think we still go with Duskwatch Recruiter here. And then say go. Now we can activate it end of turn. Opponent sacrifices a clue. So opponent with lots of cards in hand, but they need to translate that into a board presence. And we kind of have to make sure not to walk straight into a sweeper effect and try to gain some card advantage from the Duskwatch Recruiter, hopefully. Nissa Vital Force from the opponent. Let's see if it gets back something from the graveyard or makes a land into a 5/5. In which case the Gearhulk putting counters on our creatures is going to be pretty nice. Alright, turns land into creature. Plays Oath of Nissa. So we don't really have to be afraid of more instant speed interaction from the opponent unless they tap the land, which I guess they could do. They could block and then play a removal spell, for example. Woodland Wanderer is a good one to know about. So end of turn here, we don't have to forget to use the Recruiter and hopefully hit a good creature. Sage can kill the clue. So I think I would rather have another Recruiter. Alright, Grasp of Darkness is actually also not bad. So let's see, we can play Gearhulk and still activate Recruiter. So Want to make sure to keep up black mana for both the Grasp of Darkness at instant speed and green mana for the Recruiter activation. And now we have to think about how we want to distribute the +1/+1 counters. 2 on the Advocate, and then 2 on the Recruiter, and then we have Grasp of Darkness for the planes if it blocks the Recruiter. So let's do that. And then the Sylvan Advocate will be big enough to attack into the 6/6 that our opponent is going to play next turn. So let's go to combat. Attack with both. And I think both go at Nissa here. Opponent might just let this happen, or they can block or 4/4, and then Grasp will take care of the 5/5. Instead they decide to chump. Alright. That's fine. Nissa goes down to 2 loyalty. And we're certainly not going to play out another Duskwatch, since if our opponent does have Outburst, that would be very bad. Would still be bad, of course, but at least we still get to use the Recruiter here. And then maybe Shambling Vent can do some damage. Alright, Thalia, don't mind that. Can kill that with a Grasp. Nissa turns land into creature yet again. And let's just look for more creatures. Cultivator is fine. Do have 4 card types for Delirium. And a Sorin. Alright, so now we're talking. So Sorin can deal with both the Nissa and the land. We have Grasp for the Thalia. We also have a lot of attackers, so we maybe could even try and kill our opponent here this turn. If they have absolutely nothing. We can play Sorin. And, well, actually we should play the Grasp first to kill Thalia so our land doesn't come into play tapped. So let's do that. Play Sorin. And I think we just kill the land here. And see if our opponent maybe wants to activate the Needle Spires. Alright, they have an Archangel Avacyn instead. That's not bad. Didn't really see that one coming, so could still make some attacks if we're willing to throw away some of our creatures. So if we attack with the Advocate alone, our opponent just blocks with Avacyn. If we attack with Gearhulk, Recruiter and the Advocate, 2 of these at the Nissa, and then this at our opponent. Yeah, this seems fine. Opponent gets to eat Duskwatch Recruiter. They go for the Gearhulk, no. Alright, they do go for the Recruiter. They do take 6 and Nissa is dead. Does suck that we lose our Sorin now. But with another Recruiter in hand, we should be able to find more creatures to fight this Avacyn. Plus, I still need a way to deal with Sylvan Advocate, since it is still bigger than the Avacyn. We know they have the 6/6 in hand they haven't played yet, and now they also have a Gideon. And another Thalia. So things are getting a little complicated. So we can play Duskwatch Recruiter. Also, we don't have to forget Shambling Vent is a 4/5 thanks to the Sylvan Advocate. If we were to attack with Advocate, Gearhulk and Shambling Vent, and I think we would throw that all at Gideon at this point since we're not really killing our opponent, then the best blocks our opponent can make is perhaps 2 creatures on the Advocate. I think this works out fine. Let's activate the Shambling Vent and send everyone at Gideon. Alright, so their opponent makes some trades and some chum blocks to keep Gideon alive. That does mean that if they emblem, they could make their 6/6 into a potential 7/7 thanks to the emblem. I think we still play the Duskwatch here, we get an activation out of it, and might as well play the land here, I guess, in case we draw more lands for more Duskwatch activations. So the opponent needs to top deck an answer to our Sylvan Advocate. They could go 6/6 make an emblem, but it looks like instead they're gonna be content making a token. And Woodland Wanderer, there we go. And they will still have enough mana to activate a Needle Spires if they tap correctly here. So Gideon is going to be annoying to deal with. Hopefully we can find a flyer. Alright, there we go. Gisela, I think, is what we need here over Tireless Tracker. And actually the Wanderer is only a 5/5 since their opponent doesn't have 4 different lands for Converge. We can play Oath of Nissa. Sacrifice one of them since it's legendary. Find a Nissa Vital Force. Yes, please. And let's see, what sweet things can we get back from the graveyard? Could even get back a Selfless Spirit and make some good attacks. I don't actually hate that. Play Nissa. Could also turn a land into a 5/5, which actually is a 7/7 thanks to Sylvan Advocate. Yeah, that might just be better here, actually. And could have maybe also activated a Shambling Vent if we tapped differently and attacked with that as well. But I think I want to play Gisela here. So let's go to combat, and I think we still send these at Gideon. Opponent can double block here and chump with a Needle Spires, but I think we're happy with that. So our opponent did not activate their Needle Spires, so it looks like we're just trading here and Gideon is gonna go down, which is fine. And now that Gideon is dealt with, I could see a reason not to play Gisela to not overextend and just activate Recruiter once, but she does help protect our Nissa here, so I think we do still play her. And say go. So now if Needle Spires gets activated, we can still block with Gisela, and that will work out fine for us. The card I'm afraid of here is a Planar Outburst with Awaken, but doesn't look like our opponent has it. So we both played our fair share of mythic rares, but we came out on top. No play from the opponent. And with the trigger on the stack here, we can certainly activate it once to try and find more creatures. And Nissa will do just fine, even though we already have a Nissa in play. It's a nice backup to have. Trying to a Grasp of Darkness. So we should be able to close out the game here in plenty of ways. Could even get back a Verdurous Gearhulk and play that. Could just turn a land into a creature. Think I like getting back the Gearhulk. Is that better than doing anything else? Could get back a Sorin. Think I'll go with Gearhulk. And then we can still use our Grasp of Darkness if we have to. And then I guess we'll just put 4 on Gisela, hope our opponent doesn't have instant speed removal spell, and then just attack with our Gisela for 8 in the air. Might as well send in the Howler, just in case our opponent does have something like a Blessed Alliance. Alright, there we go. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this gameplay. And as always, have a nice day.